Deep beneath the restless waves of the strategic Red Sea, an invisible threat silently glides through the dark waters. Houthi submarines, shattering expectations and sending shockwaves across global naval powers. In a bold and unprecedented move, these elusive underwater vessels have just delivered a chilling message directly to U.S. warships patrolling one of the world's most volatile maritime crossroads. What does this covert underwater confrontation mean for the fragile balance of power in the Middle East? How close are we to a new and dangerous escalation in one of the world's most critical waterways? Join us as we uncover the Houthi submarines' threatening message sent to U.S. warships in the Red Sea. The Red Sea isn't just another stretch of water, it's one of the busiest and most important shipping lanes on Earth. Even though it looks narrow on a map, around 12% of all the world's trade flows through here. That includes container ships packed with everything from smartphones and sneakers to oil and food. Without this shortcut, ships would have to sail around Africa's southern tip, the Cape of Good Hope, a journey that can add over 2 weeks and tons of extra fuel costs. The Red Sea is also one of the warmest and saltiest seas on the planet. That unique mix makes it home to some of the most colorful and untouched coral reefs people will ever see. Its reefs are among the only ones in the world that show strong resistance to coral bleaching caused by climate change. Some scientists are now studying them to find out how coral can survive warming oceans. The sea is surrounded by powerful countries like Egypt, Sudan, Saudi Arabia, and Yemen, all of whom see it as a strategic goldmine. Its ports, like Jeddah and Port Sudan, are critical to keeping global trade flowing. Military navies from around the world, including the US, China, and European countries, regularly patrol this area to keep it safe. On the southern edge of the Red Sea sits Yemen, a country with breathtaking mountains and ancient history, but also a place torn by years of conflict. A major player in Yemen's chaos is the Houthi movement, officially called Ansar Allah, which means supporters of God. They began as a small religious and political group from the Zaidi Shia community, a lesser-known branch of Shia Islam found mostly in northern Yemen. What sets Zaydism apart is that it blends elements of both Sunni and Shia beliefs, and it once led a 1,000-year-old dynasty in Yemen known as the Imamate. The Houthis grew from a small group into a powerful armed force that now controls big parts of Yemen, including the capital city, Sana'a. Despite facing heavy bombing from a Saudi-led coalition and being part of one of the worst humanitarian crises on Earth, where millions have no access to clean water or food, they've managed to survive and fight back using guerrilla tactics. They know the mountains of Yemen like the back of their hand, using caves and rugged terrain to hide and launch surprise attacks. What many people don't realize is how tech-savvy the Houthis have become. Backed by Iran, they've developed an arsenal of advanced drones, some of which can fly over 1,000 miles. While the designs come from Iran, the Houthis have customized many themselves using 3D printing and local workshops, basically making DIY war machines. Since November 2023, they've fired over 100 drone and missile strikes at ships in the Red Sea, especially ones they say are connected to Israel, claiming to show support for Palestinians during the Gaza conflict. The Houthis have also planted underwater mines and used remote-controlled boats packed with explosives, turning the Red Sea into a high-stakes danger zone for global shipping. Imagine a ship captain trying to steer through one of the world's busiest waterways, not just watching for storms or pirates, but also dodging hidden bombs under the waves. All of this makes the Red Sea more than just a trade route. It's a pressure point where local conflicts, like the war in Yemen, can ripple out to affect the whole world. One of the most eye-opening incidents in the Red Sea happened in December 2023, involving the massive container ship Maersk Hangzhou. Although flying a Singapore flag, this ship is owned by the Danish shipping giant Maersk, one of the world's oldest and largest shipping companies, operating since 1904. Hangzhou was sailing through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a narrow but crucial waterway that connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. This strait sees the passage of about 6,200,000 barrels of oil per day and nearly 30% of all global container traffic. So when something goes wrong here, the world feels it. That's when the trouble started. The Houthi rebels from Yemen launched a bold and dangerous assault. They used small, fast attack boats some disguised as fishing vessels, and even fired guided missiles, a tactic that echoes Iran's naval strategies in the Persian Gulf. These attacks weren't random. They were meant to disrupt global shipping and draw attention to the ongoing Israel-Gaza conflict, which the Houthis claim as justification for their actions. In this case, U.S. Navy helicopters operating from nearby warships like the USS Eisenhower and USS Gravely quickly responded. They opened fire, destroying 3 of the attacking boats and forcing the rest to retreat. Remarkably, no crew members on the Maersk Hangzhou were hurt, but the message was loud and clear. The Red Sea was no longer a safe highway. To tackle this growing threat, the United States launched Operation Prosperity Guardian in late December 2023. This wasn't just an American mission. It quickly turned into a coalition effort. Countries like the UK, France, Italy, Bahrain, and even Greece joined in, sending naval assets to patrol the waters. What makes this operation unique is that it's happening under a shared maritime security framework, but without going through NATO or the UN. That allowed for quicker coordination and more flexible rules of engagement. But the stakes kept rising. The Houthis managed to shoot down not 1, but 7 USMQ-9 Reaper drones. These drones, often called flying computers, are equipped with infrared cameras, laser target designators, and sometimes even Hellfire missiles. Each one costs roughly $30 million, and they usually operate at 50,000 feet. So taking them down shows just how advanced the Houthi weapon systems have become, likely thanks to Iranian technology and training. One of the drones was even reportedly shot down by a surface-to-air missile launched from a modified civilian truck. Then there was a dramatic incident aboard the U.S. Harry S. Truman, one of the Navy's 10 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. While the ship was performing evasive maneuvers to dodge incoming missiles and drones, an F/A-18E Super Hornet rolled off the flight deck and plunged into the sea. These jets are highly advanced, capable of flying faster than the speed of sound and packed with radar jamming tech. It's extremely rare for a plane to fall off a carrier outside of a combat landing or a mechanical failure, making this loss a serious operational concern. Few people know that the Houthis have even started using underwater drone boats, remote-controlled vessels packed with explosives designed to detonate beneath a ship's hull. These types of attacks are very hard to detect and almost impossible to defend against without close-range naval surveillance. The Houthis are also turning to psychological warfare. In intercepted broadcasts, they've warned commercial vessels by name, sometimes reading out shipping manifests in Arabic and English, something that's deeply unsettling to global shipping companies. Some ships have even started turning off their AIS trackers to avoid detection, which is risky because it increases the chance of collisions in busy sea lanes. All of this has turned the Bab el-Mandeb into a real maritime danger zone. What used to be a shortcut between Asia and Europe is now forcing many companies to reroute their ships around the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa, a detour that adds up to 10 extra days and millions in fuel costs per trip. That's already starting to affect global supply chains and could drive up prices on everything from electronics to groceries. Recently, the U.S. military carried out what they called self-defense strikes on 5 different targets in areas of Yemen controlled by the Houthi rebels. This happened right after the Houthis shocked the world by using an unmanned submarine for the very first time in their attacks in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, 2 of the busiest and most strategically important waterways on the planet. These waters link the Mediterranean Sea to the Indian Ocean through the Suez Canal, making them a critical global shipping route. Around 10% of the world's trade and about a quarter of all oil shipments pass through here every day. The unmanned submarine, technically called an unmanned underwater vehicle, is a game changer. Unlike drones that fly in the air, these underwater robots can silently glide beneath the waves, making them far harder to spot with traditional radar or sonar systems. During a tense period of military activity, the Iranian-backed Houthi movement dropped a video that grabbed global attention. It showed them unveiling their latest weaponry in the form of maritime attacks on mock American and Israeli ships, demonstrating a range of high-tech experimental tools. On the surface, it might seem like just another exaggerated show-off video, but there's a bigger reason to pay attention. The Houthis have already managed to cause serious damage to multiple merchant ships in the Red Sea, with the world largely underestimating the threat they pose. The video introduced one particular weapon that stood out, the Al-Qaria, which translates to the Great Disaster. This weapon is a type of autonomous underwater vehicle, or AUV, that functions like a robotic torpedo, and, like a kamikaze mission, it's a one-way journey, no return. Now this is where it gets interesting. There's been online chatter about whether the Al-Qaria is simply a copy of the American-made REMIS 600, a highly advanced AUV used by Western navies for tasks like underwater mapping and mine detection. The real kicker? The Houthis got their hands on a REMIS 600 back in 2018 when it mysteriously vanished during a mission. So it wouldn't be too crazy to think they reverse-engineered the technology to make their version. However, a closer inspection reveals that while both share a similar shape, they are by no means identical. The Al-Qaria, for example, has 4 control fins at the back, unlike the REMIS, which only has 3. And the way the hull is designed and shaped seems different enough to suggest that the Houthis might have put their spin on things, or even brought in some outside help. It's not out of the question that they might have received assistance from nations like Iran or North Korea, both of whom are known for their advanced missile and weapons programs. Another curious thing about the Al-Qaria is its bright yellow color. Now, yellow might seem like an odd choice for a stealth weapon, but there's a practical reason for it. Across the world, many AUVs are painted yellow because it makes them easier to spot and recover after a training mission or if something goes wrong. However, in this case, it could also be a strategic decoy. By choosing yellow, the Houthis may be trying to make the AUV blend in with civilian or commercial underwater drones, avoiding suspicion and detection. Now, building a fully functional AUV from scratch is no small feat. These vehicles need advanced navigation systems, pressure-resistant hulls, and the ability to operate silently for extended periods underwater. If the Houthis are pulling this off, it's a clear indication of how quickly unconventional forces are catching up to traditional navies in the field of underwater warfare. Interestingly, the REMIS series itself was originally developed by a small U.S. company that spun out of a university research project. Fast forward to today, and the Houthis, along with other militias around the world, are replicating this military-grade tech that was once the exclusive domain of powerful superpowers. UUV technology is usually reserved for the most advanced navies around the world, like those of the US, China, and Russia. That the Houthis now have access to such a weapon signals a major leap in their military capabilities, and a troubling one. Experts say it's very unlikely that the Houthis developed this high-tech drone on their own. Instead, they likely received it from Iran, which has been known to supply sophisticated weapons to its allies in the region. Iran's involvement doesn't just stop at drones. They have a whole history of providing anti-ship cruise missiles, drones, and other smart weapons to groups like the Houthis. Some reports even suggest that Iranian engineers have helped in assembling or programming these underwater drones to operate autonomously or remotely. Besides the underwater drone, the US also targeted an unmanned surface vessel, a robotic boat that can float on the water's surface without a crew. These surface drones are also very hard to detect and can carry explosives or surveillance gear. The US struck these along with anti-ship cruise missiles, which have been a staple in the Houthis' arsenal for years. These missiles are a big deal because they can travel over 100 miles at high speeds and precisely target ships, causing serious damage or disruption. Another thing is that unmanned underwater vehicles like these can be programmed to mimic natural sea life movements or can be set to patrol specific routes silently, making them perfect for surprise attacks or surveillance without being noticed. This technology is still relatively new, even for powerful navies, and seeing it in the hands of a rebel group shows how quickly warfare technology is spreading globally. In short, the US strikes aim to stop this emerging threat before it could cause bigger problems for regional and global security. After a fragile ceasefire paused Yemen's bloody civil war in 2022, the Houthis still control key regions, including the capital Sana'a. They've essentially created a mini-state within Yemen, complete with their army, police, and even a shadow government. Backing the Houthis behind the scenes is Iran's Quds Force, the elite wing of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps that handles overseas operations. This group is like Iran's secret military arm abroad, known for training and supplying militant groups across the Middle East, including Hezbollah in Lebanon and militias in Iraq and Syria. The Quds force has helped smuggle precision-guided missiles, kamikaze drones, and radar jamming technology into Yemen, despite international arms embargoes. For months, the Houthis have been trying to strike U.S. Navy ships operating in the Red Sea and surrounding waters. Their goal is to disrupt international shipping and challenge American presence in one of the world's most strategic maritime routes, especially the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which sees nearly 10% of global oil trade pass through daily. Yet despite repeated attempts using missiles and drones, they haven't managed to land a hit on a U.S. warship so far, but they're not giving up. According to U.S. defense officials, the Houthis, with Iranian guidance, are tweaking their playbook. They're shifting toward more sophisticated and dangerous tactics, like swarm attacks, where dozens of drones or explosive-laden speedboats hit a target from all directions at once. This tactic is designed to overload a ship's defenses. Even advanced U.S. naval vessels like the USS Carney, equipped with Aegis radar systems and SM-2 missiles, can struggle to shoot down everything in a massive, multi-pronged assault. What makes these unmanned threats even more alarming is that many are based on Iranian Shahed drone models, the same kind used by Russia and Ukraine. These drones are cheap to produce, often assembled with off-the-shelf parts like GPS units from China or circuit boards smuggled in through black markets. And despite being low-tech in some ways, they're deadly when used in large numbers. The situation escalated even further when, in early 2024, another Iranian-backed militia group struck a U.S. base in Jordan, killing 3 American service members and injuring dozens more. This marked the deadliest attack on U.S. forces in the region in years. In response, the U.S. launched waves of airstrikes targeting Iran-linked groups in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Now Washington is warning, if one of these Houthi drones, missiles, or sea drones manages to kill American sailors, Iran won't just be blamed, it could be held directly responsible. That could set the stage for a much wider regional conflict, possibly dragging in Gulf allies, Israel, and other global powers. On January 15th, the U.S. Coast Guard intercepted a suspicious vessel making its way from Iran toward Houthi-controlled territory in Yemen. On January 28, 2024, the U.S. Coast Guard cutter USCG Sea Clarence Sutphin Jr. made a surprising and high-stakes discovery in the Arabian Sea. It intercepted an Iranian dhow, a traditional wooden cargo boat that's been used for centuries, and uncovered something far more dangerous than spices or textiles: over 200 carefully packaged pieces of military hardware headed for Houthi-controlled Yemen. This wasn't just a random weapons bust. Inside the hull were parts for medium-range ballistic missiles, high-powered explosives, anti-tank guided missile launcher assemblies, encrypted military communication systems, and most notably, components for unmanned surface and underwater drones, commonly known as USVs and UUVs. The Houthis have been using improvised naval drones for years. Some of their most dangerous ones are disguised as everyday fishing boats or speedboats packed with explosives. What's especially alarming about this find is how advanced some of these drone components were. Intelligence experts say parts of the shipment suggest newer generations of maritime drones capable of operating underwater, essentially aquatic suicide drones. These are much harder to detect and stop than surface vessels, which is why naval forces around the world are keeping a close eye on this kind of tech. The operation violated UN Security Council Resolution 2216, which strictly bans the transfer of weapons to the Houthi rebels. And this wasn't a one-time thing, far from it. Between 2015 and 2023, at least 18 Iranian smuggling vessels were intercepted trying to sneak similar cargoes into Yemen. In several cases, some of the weapons bore serial numbers that matched Iranian military inventories, making it hard for Tehran to deny involvement. CENTCOM Commander General Michael Eric Kurilla didn't mince words. He called out Iran directly, saying these actions are destabilizing the entire region and threatening international shipping and security. And he's not exaggerating. 2 such USVs were destroyed in recent U.S. airstrikes, underscoring the growing threat they pose to maritime security in the region. This wasn't just about stopping weapons with boots on the ground or ships at sea. The U.S. also launched a rare and sophisticated cyber attack. According to American officials, the target was an Iranian vessel named MV Behshad. This ship is essentially a floating surveillance base, outfitted with high-tech equipment used for electronic spying. It's been quietly sailing around the Red Sea for months, relaying critical intelligence to Houthi forces, like the precise GPS coordinates of targets. The U.S. cyber attack reportedly disabled the Bashad's ability to communicate, disrupting its role in coordinating strikes. The MV Bashad is part of Iran's so-called Ghost Fleet, a network of civilian-looking ships that collect surveillance data while posing as merchant vessels. Many of these ships are equipped with satellite dishes, radar domes, and antennas disguised as harmless features. Some experts believe these ships are also capable of jamming GPS signals or intercepting drone feeds. The U.S. hit the Bashad as part of a broader, multi-layered response following a deadly January 28th attack in Jordan that killed 3 American service members. That attack, blamed on Iranian-backed militia groups, pushed Washington to adopt more aggressive tactics both online and offline. Meanwhile, the Houthis didn't stay quiet. They claimed responsibility for 5 attacks within a 24-hour window. 2 of those strikes targeted American ships in the Gulf of Aden, one of the world's busiest shipping routes, and another reportedly hit and sank a British cargo vessel. The Houthis have been using increasingly advanced and improvised tactics. In recent months, they've deployed everything from cruise missiles and one-way attack drones to modified speedboats packed with explosives, some of which are remotely piloted by tablets or phones using satellite internet. Interestingly, many of the intercepted weapon parts show signs of being 3D printed or made using commercial, off-the-shelf components. This makes tracking and stopping them even harder. U.S. officials have said that some Houthi drones contain circuit boards made in countries like China or even the U.S., highlighting the global reach of their supply chains. By May 2025, after enduring nearly a month of relentless U.S. airstrikes targeting radar sites, missile launchers, and drone facilities, the Houthi rebels in Yemen finally signaled they were open to dialing things down. U.S. intelligence picked up on a noticeable drop in Houthi communications traffic and fewer launch activities, clues that something had shifted behind the scenes. This eventually led to a ceasefire being announced on May 6th. As part of the agreement, the Houthis committed to halting attacks on American ships in the Red Sea. However, they were quick to clarify that they still considered Israeli-linked vessels fair game. That's a big deal, because they've been using everything from modified Iranian-made drones to old Soviet-era cruise missiles, many of which have been retrofitted with GPS spoofing technology to avoid interception. Some of these missiles, like the Quds 2 and Quds 3, are believed to have a range of up to 1,500 kilometers and have been launched from concealed mobile platforms hidden in Yemen's rugged highlands. The impact of the attacks has gone far beyond the military sphere. The Houthis disrupted a key global trade route, one that handles roughly $1 trillion in goods annually. At least 12 major shipping companies, including Maersk, Hapag-Lloyd, and Mediterranean Shipping Company, temporarily pulled out of the Red Sea, forcing cargo vessels to reroute around the southern tip of Africa, a detour that adds up to 14 days and thousands of miles to their journey. As a result, global shipping costs surged by as much as 65% in early 2025. Even energy giants like BP and Shell suspended their Red Sea transits due to safety concerns. This had a knock-on effect. European fuel prices briefly spiked due to delivery delays, and Asian manufacturers, particularly in Japan and South Korea, faced bottlenecks importing semiconductors and rare earth minerals used in everything from smartphones to electric cars. What many people don't realize is that the Houthis' ability to sustain these operations is deeply tied to a vast underground supply network. Intelligence reports suggest they've received not only weapons and funding from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, but also satellite imagery and encrypted communication support. There's even unconfirmed chatter that former engineers from Iraq's dissolved Ba'athist-era military have been assisting them in building long-range drones and cruise missiles using scavenged parts from defunct aircraft and old Iraqi arsenals. Another fascinating twist is that Red Sea piracy is making a quiet comeback. The instability caused by the Houthi attacks has created gaps in maritime security, and some Somali pirate networks, dormant for nearly a decade, have begun regrouping to exploit the chaos. So while the U.S. Houthi ceasefire has brought a moment of calm, it's more of a fragile timeout than a true resolution. With Israeli-linked ships still being targeted and broader tensions between the US, Iran, and regional Gulf powers simmering, the Red Sea remains one of the most dangerous and closely watched maritime flashpoints on the planet. All it would take is one missile that hits the wrong ship, or worse, a civilian target, to reignite the entire conflict. Thank you for watching another episode on our channel. While you are still here, click the video on your screen to see more mind-blowing videos like this one.